All right, hello and welcome back to another CyberEd webinar series presentation from cyber.org. Today we're thrilled to bring you an informative and relevant discussion on cybersecurity certifications for high school students. As a teacher, how do you decide which credentials are right for students and when should they take them? I've no doubt that today's panelists will bring some clarity to this question and answer some other questions for us when it comes to deciding which cybersecurity certification is right for your classroom. This webinar is being recorded for later distribution, but it is being attended by live participants. We'll ask that everyone in the audience please keep their mics muted throughout the presentation and to please drop any questions that you have for panelists into the chat. At the end of the session, as time permits, we'll try to get those questions answered by the panel. My name is Dr. Chuck Gardner, and I'm the Director of Curriculum at cyber.org. Through a grant from the Department of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, cyber.org develops no-cost resources for K-12 educators and supports it with free professional development throughout the calendar year. For more information on these opportunities, please visit our website at cyber.org. With me today are three outstanding individuals that I'm happy to know. We'll be hearing from Amy Kardel, the Vice President of Strategic Workforce Relationships at CompTIA, Karen McPherson, a Curriculum and Instructional Management Coordinator from Elizabeth City, Pasquotank Public Schools in North Carolina, and Dr. Thomas Trevethan, the Cybersecurity Academy Curriculum Manager at Palo Alto Networks. After giving each of the panelists just a few minutes to introduce themselves, we'll go down to questions. Amy, would you like to begin? Brief introduction.
It'd be my pleasure to introduce myself. Hi, it's a pleasure to be here because CompTIA's mission is to really connect with from industry as a trade association to educators, and this is a great opportunity for us to do that. So thanks for inviting us. We have a lot of resources for you, but let me tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm an entrepreneur by opportunity and an educator by occupation in some ways. So coming to technology from an unlikely background of a humanities major, undergraduate major who got a work study job that led to a tech career, I saw what it took to get into tech from not being in tech, and then have kind of focused on the workforce pipeline ever since in technology companies. So as an entrepreneur, I've done that, and then consulting with other companies, the number one thing we hear from employers and peers who are entrepreneurs is how hard it is to find a talented cyber workforce or IT workforce. So now I work at CompTIA on those issues with the U.S. Department of Education, U.S. Department of Labor. We have a huge push into apprenticeship that we'll be working on expanding that for cyber and tech careers for in our industry, and I'm heading that initiative as well. So I see really the key thing bringing our two worlds of education and industry together, and that seems to be the number one thing that both sides of the fence want, and I'm here to help build those bridges as someone who's been a practitioner and in theory in both. Thank you.
That's great, thank you. Karen, if you're ready, tell us about yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. Karen McPherson. I am actually on the job as a curriculum and instructional management coordinator for 2 weeks, but prior to that role, I was at the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, and I had a couple of different roles. When I first started 3.5 years ago, I was a business, finance, and IT consultant, which ended up changing into a computer science and IT consultant. So I worked with developing some cybersecurity courses with the help of Palo Alto and identifying other resources for cybersecurity education and attending several cybersecurity summits and conferences. I've had 20 years in education, and before my time with the Department of Public Instruction, I spent 16 years as a business teacher in a quiet little city in northeastern North Carolina. But I'm happy to be here today and talk about what my new role in Elizabeth City, Pasquotank Public Schools will look like as far as cybersecurity is concerned, and promoting cybersecurity for all. Thanks.
Excellent, thank you. Last but certainly not least, Dr. Trevethan, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Tom Trevethan. I'm the Curriculum Manager at Palo Alto Networks Cybersecurity Academy. What we do is we enable faculty to prepare students to enter the cybersecurity workforce. So whether it's at the high school level or the collegiate level. Prior to coming here, I was dean at a university here in Southeast Virginia for about 15 years. And I taught the cybersecurity program for undergrad and grad students. I'm happy to be here and answer your questions.
Excellent, thank you. Thanks, everyone. If you're ready, let's get started. The first question will be for all of you, and we'll start with Amy. Many have expressed concern that high school students are too young to earn industry-based credentials, or IBCs. Either they lack real-world experience, exposure to tool sets, or the maturity to handle the rigors of an IBC exam. What do you think is the biggest challenge facing students, either high school or college level, as they transition into cybersecurity?
Yeah, that's a really big chicken and egg question, right? Because we want to see students get work experience while they're students. That's probably the hardest part. Because if you don't have experience, how do you get a job? If you don't have a job, how do you get experience, right? We all know this cycle, and people we coach, teach, work with, and want to help. And we would say that there are great examples in high school programs and college programs for students earning industry recognized credentials, including CompTIA credentials. And it really takes that engaged faculty member. We have resources to support that, because we see that as a key thing that we can do as a trade association, is support from industry and certification into that. So we have our CompTIA Instructor Network, CIN, and you can find all these things at CompTIA.org to help you. And we really, it oftentimes starts with that great instructor. So, and having those resources to make yourself a great instructor and connect with peers is something we want to help facilitate. So that's there to help with that barrier, because it's a twofold barrier. It's not just the student's barrier, but it's that having a quality instructor. And then the other piece you asked about is how can they prepare themselves for that career? Well, we would say there's lots of ways to get that work-like experience as students. This can be competitions, team projects, and encouraging your students to keep a portfolio moving forward of what they have done. As a mom, I've seen this so many times. The first time one of my kids puts a resume together, they don't know what to put on it. So I always think about how important it is to track those experiences and start building that portfolio, because you scratch the surface and there are some things they can list as experience to help keep that that evidence as they move forward in top of mind when they do write that first resume, and also help with instructors to write recommendations if they can be specific. They served on this project, that project, et cetera. Having that portfolio to refer to sure makes it easier to take that next step.
Awesome. Good information. Thank you. I'm going to keep it org focused for a second and go to you, Tom, next.
Yeah, so what is the biggest challenge? I mean, that's a good question, because the cybersecurity industry is very competitive, and it's a hot market, as we know. A potential worker with just a high school education is simply not enough to compete. You have to differentiate yourselves with certification and practice, right? Workers in the cybersecurity industry, they need to stay abreast of the changes that take place on a regular basis. Because as we know, technology changes rapidly. Cybersecurity industry is no exception. So I look at cybersecurity as an infinite game, right? So that we're always trying to stay ahead of the adversary. So this requires constant reading and research, practice, trying to develop skills, maybe with hands-on labs. I know in our courses that we offer schools in our academy, they have hands-on skills-based labs that are just point and click, and currently it's at no cost. So we partner with a group called NDG, Network Development Group, and the students, they can learn how to configure a firewall, a virtual machine, so that they can hit the ground running right when they enter the workforce. If you want to be successful, you have to practice. You have to read a lot, right? You have to research. And if you want to be successful, in my opinion, that's the key. So the biggest challenge is getting that hands-on experience, in my opinion.
Sure. Excellent insight. Thank you. Karen, I'm going to move to you and ask you about biggest challenges that students are facing as they transition into cybersecurity.
So two things that I see are challenges. The first one is a lot of high school students that I talk with, they think that they have to be this super smart person, or, they don't think that they can do, quote unquote, do cybersecurity. So the expectation of kind of being elitism or I guess that's probably the wrong choice of words, but just not thinking that they can take the challenge. So what we did at the Department of Public Instruction, we developed several career pathways, and we started with low-level certifications through CompTIA, like the IT fundamentals. We also just got approved our K-12 computer science standards, which include cybersecurity. So now, starting next school year, all grades, K-12, will have some sort of experience and exposure to cybersecurity. So hopefully this challenge that we're seeing now over time in North Carolina will greatly diminish. Another challenge that we have in North Carolina is just finding the teachers that have the capacity to teach it, and then finding post-secondary programs that also have the opportunity. I know where I am now in northeastern North Carolina, a lot of students have to travel to southeastern Virginia to get to some specialty schools that offer some courses and some post-secondary work in cybersecurity. So just, making sure that capacity is there on the teacher side, the student side, and then just awareness in general. Students can achieve the task. We do offer a lot of work-based learning experiences in our courses in North Carolina, so the students can get that hands-on real world. We also push a lot of apprenticeships with our cybersecurity career pathways that we offer in North Carolina as well. So we're addressing those concerns and trying to do something about it in North Carolina. Sure,
sounds like some great plans. And that actually tees up my next question, which I'm going to bounce right back to you, Karen, if you don't mind. In terms of all of these great opportunities that are available to students, my question is, again, for teachers who are looking to get more students involved in these kinds of opportunities, states have a variety of methods to encourage students to get involved in cybersecurity. Can you give us an idea of how North Carolina is working to make students aware of cybersecurity career or degree opportunities that exist after high school?
Well, we do a few things in North Carolina, like I mentioned before. Integrating those K-12 computer science standards is a major task that I had the pleasure of working with that group. We also have two career pathways that feature the Cybersecurity Essentials course that we adopted from Palo Alto. We have a network administration pathway that leads to, they can get 3 credentials. They can actually get the network, CompTIA's network plus exam credential, the IT fundamentals credential, and Palo Alto's credential. And then we have a network security pathway that has 2 courses that lead to CompTIA's Security Plus credential. And as well, they can also in that pathway earn Palo Alto certification as well. We do a lot in October. We do a social media push about Cyber Awareness Month. So those are the types of things that we do, in our state. Again, more things to come because I left the previous position in capable hands. So I'm looking forward to seeing what else they're going to do in North Carolina. But I'm going to be the big cheerleader on the side in northeastern North Carolina promoting cybersecurity.
That sounds awesome. I'm very excited for those opportunities that students are going to get now that you're in a new high visibility seat. So that sounds great. To shift over to a provider question real quick. So I'm going to ask this of Tom and Amy. I'd like to pull you from your knowledge on the credential-based cybersecurity workforce. In terms of entry-level job opportunities and the credentials that are offered by you and even other organizations, which IBCs do you think students and teachers should know about? I'll start with you, Tom, if you don't mind.
Well, for us, I think they should start with Palo Alto Network certification. Our entry-level certification is the PCCET. And this is a really good cert because, in my opinion, it's probably the only industry-based cert out there that encompasses fundamentals of cyber, network security, cloud security, and security operations all in one. And the other thing about the PCCET is they can attempt it from their home, right? So through Pearson View, we have it set up so that they can attempt the cert, from their home or from their office.
If you don't mind my asking, PCCET, I'm assuming is an acronym. Do you have a description for that?
Yeah, it's Palo Alto Networks Certified Cybersecurity Entry-Level Technician.
Okay. And you're seeing, go ahead.
Go ahead, I'll put a link in the chat.
Sure.
If you want to look at the certification and where you can, gain access to it.
That's perfect, thanks. And I assume you're seeing industries accept that credential as an entry-level opportunity for students, either transitioning out of school or degrees into workforce opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. As we all know, not every student is going to graduate from high school and attend college.
Indeed.
So ultimately, they need to get prepared if they're going to enter the workforce. And the way to do that is to differentiate yourself from other potential candidates by having an industry-based cert. I mean, CompTIA is really strong with the industry-based certs, the Net Plus, Sec Plus, A Plus, Cloud Plus. I mean, those are all, in my opinion, they're almost mandatory. They are for most government jobs. I know that for a fact. But, in North Carolina, Karen, with their program down there, their students are preparing for what was formerly called the PCCSA. So it just changed to PCCET. We had a pilot up in Vancouver, BC, a couple of years ago. It was our high school pilot. And I think the initial pilot had about 30 students. I want to say about 50% of them attempted the PCCSA at that time, and half of them achieved, the credential. So, and the numbers have been going up ever since. But like I said, to have that credential on your resume, that's going to get you in the interview pool, right? So other than just the education, I think a certification is key.
Sure. Great information. I appreciate it. And the plug for CompTIA, I'm sure Amy appreciates as well. But same question to you, Amy, if you don't mind, in terms of entry-level job opportunities and the credentials that are offered by you and other folks, what do you think teachers and students should know about?
Well, I like to think about it from the employer side, demand side too. And so cyberseek.org, I'll put in the chat, is a website I'd like to make sure everybody knows about. And that's our analysis of a heat map of jobs and the gap in credentialed folks to take those jobs. And so there we're looking at a lot of cyber jobs and the core skills and industry certifications that Thomas just talked about. From CompTIA's perspective, we are vendor neutral and look at ourselves as really the core skills certifications. And then we have pathways, that come from the core skills that are, again, vendor neutral. So we can go off in infrastructure or into cyber, and really, starts with students learning how to take tests. And that's what really IT Fundamentals Plus is about. It's a proctored exam and it's high stakes, but learning how to take a test is part of learning how to be a professional. And so that test is one of our easiest, and that's where it starts. And we go to A+, we go to Network Plus, and we go to Security Plus, and we call that our core skills. And then we branch off into the cybersecurity pathway with either Pen Test Plus or CYSA Plus, and then CASP Plus is an option too. So we see that as a progressive pathway. And I really want to emphasize the point of, learning how to take a test under IT Fundamentals Plus is really like the key piece to think about. But, what we see employers needing and wanting and what pathways there are with other certifications, that's what our research department really looks at. And that's all highlighted on cyberseek.org. But if a student is curious about pathways or an instructor, we have at CompTIA a pathway interactive tool map. We used to have sort of an eye chart that a lot of you might remember with all sorts of industry certifications. But now if you just Google CompTIA and career pathway, you'll get to an exploration wizard that can really help highlight different pathways. And so we have some folks there, and then one of those is, of course, cybersecurity focus with cybersecurity specialist. And we talk about what the job looks like, and you can click on learn more. And you can see where job postings are available, what salary data is, what skills, what certifications, and we have that in a roadmap for you from beginning to advanced, because that's really one of the number one questions we get. You know, it's a little bit like Girl Scouts, maybe. I was a Girl Scout forever. So if we know what the merit badge pathway is to get to a certain level, we as humans are sort of programmed to follow that pathway. And so we try to really give that visual guidance and resources and encouragement to say, okay, this is how you earn all your merit badges, and that'll line you up with industry demand.
Sure, if you've got a path to follow, it's
Yeah.
always easier to follow that path and to try new things. Good information. I appreciate that. I'm going to bring us all back together and ask you all to consider the next question. And I'm going to start with Tom. So I'll give you a minute to ponder. Women, minorities, and people with disabilities remain underrepresented in cybersecurity. How do you think we should be working to break down some of these barriers and make cyber opportunities more equitable? And I can tell you that some of the work that cyber.org is doing in this space includes work with students with disabilities in a variety of locations across the country. And then, you know, just working that curriculum and instructional resources are accessible to all students. And I'm curious what your organizations, Palo Alto, CompTIA, and how the district, Karen, in North Carolina are prepared for these to handle these students. So Tom, to you, what are you guys doing to attract underrepresented populations?
Yeah, so another good question. I believe appropriate messaging and communication will help. Palo Alto Networks Academy, we're committed to partnering and working with inclusion and diversity schools across the country. Our primary goal is to prepare all faculty to protect our digital way of life, one student at a time, right? Palo Alto Networks as a company is working to bring together the best and most diverse teams to solve the world's toughest cybersecurity challenges. So you can see, I put a link out there on our IND site, and I think if you look at some of our partnerships, I think, what was it? One of them, who brought that up? Oh, that was Amy. We partner with the Girl Scouts, so we help the Girl Scouts create cybersecurity badges. National Society of Black Engineers, Vets in Tech, Women in Cybersecurity, Black Girls Code. We have a number of initiatives that spotlight our diversity across the cybersecurity industry. So if you take a look at that site, it'll show you our partners. It'll talk about workforce, workplace, and marketplace, and our various focus areas, and our overall commitment to inclusion and diversity in cybersecurity.
Awesome. That's a good link, and I appreciate that information. We were part of that Girl Scout Cyber Badge development, and that was I think that was back when we all first met as organizations. So it's been a long road since then, but really productive and enlightening for everybody. So
with Girl Scouts, that's awesome.
I'm going to throw it to you next, Amy. So feel free to take this one and let us know what CompTIA is doing in terms of bringing everybody to the game.
I'd be happy to, although I can't come back from thinking about Thin Mint cookies all of a sudden for some reason. I'm not sure why. Right out of the freezer, they're best. But what we're trying to do to really make sure we recruit from the broadest scope of folks possible and make sure that the opportunities in tech are available to as many people as possible, as well as have companies realize those advantages. We've been really engaged for quite some time in talking especially about getting more women into technology. That's been a vexing problem. And we have within our membership and structure, we have communities for talking about diversity. We have membership for talking about advancing women in technology, and we've had those for a long time. So as a trade association, having those forum and using those as platforms to speak to industry, media, and potential folks on those pathways has been a real push for us for a long time. And our CEO, Todd Thibodeau, is deeply committed and has been for a really long time in doing that. And there's sort of this index of talk versus do, right? So we can always measure how well we're doing based if we really sit down and say, okay, we've been talking, but what have we been doing, right? So I remember about 5 years ago, Todd threw out a challenge test, and I'll throw the same one out to us right now, because all of us have a place to play in this, is to, on LinkedIn, make 5 new connections with people who don't look like us, and encourage them in their pathway. Accept those invitations, or reach out to someone who's younger or different color, different gender, to make our network stronger and bigger, because that's something we can actually do. Talking about diversity and hosting Girl Scouts in a data center is all things I've done and continue to do personally as well as professionally. But I think it really comes out of the do index and versus the talk index. And so what else are we doing is really important. And we track and look at data with our research closely to look for these things and highlight the disparities. So that's a thing we're doing. And if you want any research, we've got it on this subject. And we don't like what we're seeing. We are looking at setting some really bold goals and targets, because at this inflection point in our history as a country, there's real interest on the corporate side to work on this issue. And I'm very encouraged by that. We've been working on this a long time. Hopefully, this will be a real change moment, and we won't just talk, we will do. I come from a long line of practical people who family joke, is you going to talk, are you going to fish? So it's time to fish. And in our training programs through our foundation, IT Ready is an 8-week boot camp that is fully scholarshiped. We've been doing that for close to 10 years. We continue to do that. Demand has really grown for that. We have over 50% minority enrollment in that, and we consider that a huge success, and we'd like to see even more. We now have an academy that's grown out of that, because the demand for what we can do is really huge. So we look to help folks anywhere on their pathway. Could be reskilling under the pandemic if they were in a service industry that's, they've realized they need to make a shift. We're happy to help with that, and we look for diverse candidates there. And then apprenticeship is another place where we're looking for this. My great-grandparents came to the US from Denmark, and the first thing they were thinking about is make the first dollar, go to school, get a job. And those earn and learn opportunities are still really relevant for a lot of immigrants, and also a lot of families who've come through extreme financial hardship. 2008 still got scars in a lot of families, and so does this pandemic. So that ability to earn and learn at the same time through an apprenticeship is something we really want to support, and we see that as an opportunity to have non-traditional technologists get a foot in the door without having to go through a 4-year degree, expense time to that first dollar. The return on investment can come faster, and we see that as an opportunity in cyber. And we're creating resources for that through the U.S. Department of Labor, and be happy to talk to anyone who's interested in helping us build out that network of partners to bring broader opportunity in cyber apprenticeship across the country.
That's fabulous stuff. It's funny, you can take the teacher out of the classroom, but it's hard to take the classroom out of the teacher. And you said something before that I'm immediately spinning about turning it into a classroom activity. LinkedIn, right? Find 5 people that don't look like you. Find 5 people that are in an industry that interests you. And don't just hit connect, right? But write out a greeting, right? Address them, salutation, and full letter style. Practice those ELA skills, but you're also introducing yourself to other people. So you're breaking social barriers and that other thing. So I love that transition into a classroom activity, because we're seeing more and more students with LinkedIn accounts, right? Creating that profile early. So those were serious anyway. So thank you for that. Karen, to you, thoughts on how we're going to encourage women, minorities, and people with disabilities and the rest of those, the underrepresented groups into these kinds of career and degree opportunities?
Well, career and technical education, we are federally mandated to report non-traditional, we call them non-trad, trad careers and courses. So we keep track of that in the state, and we really do try to push students, because, women, minorities, sometimes we don't pursue those opportunities because we don't see a lot of representation, already in the field. So keeping track and, encouraging students to take courses, that they would not, traditionally take is one thing that we do in North Carolina. And now for my new role in Elizabeth City, I'm going to now listen to this panel, see how we can utilize all of these industry resources. And I know, and I've been familiar with cyber.org for years, and, CompTIA, but just looking at the whole buffet that's available to us, and really connect with the community, because For me, on a personal level, yes, I would love to see kids and, the students matriculate into cybersecurity, but what about their parents? Now, we're in COVID, so some parents have lost jobs. So what are we doing to help get the word out to parents that there is, these opportunities in cybersecurity? So, I really want to work with our community partnership that we have at the school level or at the district level to see, what we can do to encourage those underrepresented populations, parents or students, to pursue cybersecurity. One of the greatest partnerships that we established when I was working with the department is at Forsyth Tech Community College with Dr. Deanne Wesley. She has a phenomenal cybersecurity program, and she has some things in place that she eventually wants to, build out teacher capacity. She offers all types of summer programs, just a lot of good things, and she takes a lot of K-12 educators under her wings in that portion of the state and a couple of the counties surrounding her. So just tapping into those resources. But it was said before, building awareness, having appropriate communication, and that's another thing that we can do at the state level and at our local level when you're looking at trying to encourage more underrepresented populations.
Yeah, great points. I agree that the local community and stakeholders in industry are going to be able to do a lot to encourage those various populations to get involved, and to kind of again bring back what Amy mentioned, right? If we get folks that look like the population we're trying to reach, that goes a long way, especially with a student. So really good points here. I'm going to throw it back to you one more time, Karen, with my next question. I hope you don't mind. What impact, so in Louisiana, for example, we have school performance scores, obviously school report cards, all these various ways that schools measure up, educators measure up, and a lot of this is on the shoulders of students, right? If you earn credentials, you earn points back for the school. Not every state's alike, and 50 different states, there's probably more than 50 different models of how the students can impact the school. But from your experience in North Carolina, what impact does a student earning an IBC have on a school or a district? And furthermore, how do you encourage students looking to pursue a cybersecurity path?
So in North Carolina, one of the things that we focus on in career and technical education for federal reporting is industry credentials. And we try to find an industry credential for any CTE course that we offer. For those that don't have a credential, we have other proofs of learning, which would be a state assessment, which is our traditional 100 question multiple choice exam, or we've just started brand new implementing performance-based measures. So for example, for our network administration course, we've got network administration 1 and 2, but the network administration 1 course doesn't have a credential aligned to it until network administration 2, which has the network plus credential. So for network administration 1, we've developed a performance-based measure so that students, as they're going through the course, can show hands-on that they're learning the content and material. So for us in CTE, credentials are absolutely important, but it's also important that if a kid can't get a credential, what are they still walking away with? So in the performance-based measure, even if they don't get the credential, we know they're still walking away with the skills that can lead up to the credential. So those are some of the things that we're doing in North Carolina. So how do we, in North Carolina, we also, each district has to come up with a comprehensive local needs assessment. So the CTE director looks at the local workforce needs, and then they come up with a 1, 3, and 5 year plan and how to address certain strategies to affect local workforce needs. So for those districts that have those cybersecurity pathways, those computer education pathways, we just leave the door wide open. So anyone can take it, and it's really up to the districts for them to promote it within their district, but then us as a state to provide the support for teachers. So we offer a lot of professional development for teachers to build that capacity so they can build their programs.
You mentioned pathways a couple of times. If I could just kind of follow up real quick. So Louisiana has a pathway opportunity where high school graduation pathways are identified, typically in CTE areas that students can follow and earn an endorsement for their high school diploma. My question is on in North Carolina pathways, who can sponsor them? Are those typically written by educators and schools and districts, or can industry and partners in the community get involved in developing these pathways? For example, a CompTIA or a Palo Alto Networks pathway for cybersecurity.
So what we've done on the state level, the consultants have worked with teachers, industry partners, and develop the pathways. But then at the district level, in those pathways, we have supplemental technical courses. We got the main pathway, then we have some supplemental technical courses. We've got some supplemental employability courses that can be interchanged or added to that pathway per the district's request and per that district's local need. So in answer to the question, we already work with industry, in development of those pathways, and the pathways that we have, like the network administration pathway. We've got a computer engineering pathway that all leads to CompTIA certifications. The network security pathway leads to CompTIA certification. We're real big on the core certifications for CompTIA, and then the course that we have with Palo Alto serves as one of those supplemental technical until we can build out a full cybersecurity pathway.
Okay, awesome, thank you. It's good to know, right, how industry can get involved in the process too. So, so that's good information. I appreciate it. For my next question, I'm going to go back to Amy and Tom, and I'm going to ask you, what advice would you give for a teacher that's preparing students for the cyber workforce? For example, what resources should they consider? What partnerships should they develop? What professional networks should they join? Conferences and workshops should they attend? Those kinds of things. If you're talking to a teacher first time into cybersecurity or a credentialed opportunity, I'm going to start with you, Amy. How would you recommend to a teacher to begin to prepare for that opportunity?
The CompTIA Instructor Network is a great place to look for peers that are instructors who are rock stars across the country. And we lean on that team as well to call together for input on how we can help the industry. So it's a two-way communication in a lot of ways, like you were saying, Karen. I think that is really important to remember that, we're here to listen and learn from industry, from teachers, and bring that to industry. And industry's here to bring things to and that's one place of those intersections. I always think where two worlds intersect is really where the work gets done. If you think about all kind of the fun things in life, it's always the intersection places that are interesting, so we really put value on that community. So I'd encourage you to look at that. There are several things that come top of mind to think about nationally. So NICE conference is a place where I see a lot of folks getting a lot of good value. I see some heads nodding on that. So I would check out the NICE conference, NICE, and ACTE is another place where we see peer sharing within the community too for career tech educators, and a lot of really best practices sharing. I mean, I think I really admire teachers for their willingness to share lesson plans and resources. It seems like that's been a long-standing tradition in the field, and certainly finding a mentor teacher and finding folks who have it going on with what you want to do in your classroom can be really inspiring and helpful. And I think that's how best practices are shared a lot of times among teachers. So it's people to people that way, but also those are the places to go look to add to your network. And there's many more. I'm sure that my colleagues here will be able to add. Thank you.
Great. Good advice. Thanks. Tom, what advice would you give to a teacher new to teaching cybersecurity in the classroom?
Well, the first thing I would say is you need to partner with cyber.org for sure, right? And then obviously you want to partner with the Palo Alto Network Cybersecurity Academy. I put a link in the chat. This academy is offered at no cost, right? So we offer curriculum for grades 9 through 12, labs, no cost, hands-on labs, point and click. There's no complex setup. It's a link in the course. You just click and go. Discounted vouchers for certification. I think it's a 50% discount on the vouchers. Faculty training and support. We offer it all. So that's the first advice I would give you. And then, beyond the classroom activities, I heard someone say LinkedIn. I would definitely encourage my students to create a LinkedIn account and to join professional groups in the field. Volunteer, seek a job in the field as a volunteer so that you can learn. Take advantage of no-cost free courses offered from sponsors. I think I have another link I can put in there so that, for example, if you go to this site, you could sign up for no-cost digital learning courses. And those courses lead to micro-credentials. I would definitely recommend that for your students. There's just a number of things you can do. Like, for example, I know this is high school, but I don't know if you ever heard of the CCDC competition, the Collegiate Cybersecurity Defense Competition. That's annually. Very cool. Scenario-based hackathons, if you will. So definitely attend those industry conferences. Nicer, not nicer. I'm sorry.
Cyber.org.
LinkedIn, and most importantly, make sure your students, they decide what they want to do with their education and their certification. You obviously want to align your investments with your career goals, right? Mm-hmm. So you probably have some skin in the game if you're paying for your certification and you're prepping for it, because that's the number one thing is preparation. Where do you want to go from there? So think about that.
Good. Great stuff. Thanks for the links. So again, knowing what you know now, Karen, and understanding an educator new to cybersecurity and what they might have access to in North Carolina, what suggestions would you have for a new teacher to this area? Are there things that North Carolina is doing to support? Do you know of other resources that you might want to discuss?
I echo all the suggestions earlier, especially working with partners like cyber.org. I would send them to cyber.org. I would send them to the NICE conference. Mm-hmm. I'm sitting there with a list in my mind, even like I said earlier with parents. Where would I send a parent that wanted to know more information? Maybe not NICE since that's for K-12, but definitely cyber.org and looking at some of the things that, some of the links that Tom posted. I often think and wonder, should I, as a second career, because I'll be a young retiree, should cybersecurity be my next platform to go into? And I'm thinking very strongly about it because I'll only be 56 when I retire. So I can definitely do it again. Yeah. So that's what I would do.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate that. Claire posted the link to the NICE K-12 conference in the chat below, and some words of encouragement for you, Karen, too. So the NICE, that's the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education, out of the NIST office. We've worked with them over the last couple of years to sponsor some content at the K-12 conference that they host every December, virtual this past year. But always a good opportunity to network, right? Networking is a big thing, like Tom mentioned, LinkedIn, and a lot of those other resources. Just, get out there and find what other folks are doing. I know there's a Facebook group or two that deals with cybersecurity education. That's also another good link. So I want to encourage folks who are sitting by watching to please drop a question for our panelists into the chat. Sorry, my next appointment's ringing next door there. But With the couple minutes that we have left, I want to go around one more time and just ask, is there anything you can tell us that's coming up that maybe, you can give us a peek inside the tent on, some work you're doing with maybe revising credentials? I know, Tom, you already mentioned PCCSA becoming PCCET. Are there other things that you guys are doing in the area of cybersecurity, education, or K-12 as a whole? And I'm going to, this was unprompted, so I'm going to go to you, Amy, if you don't mind, and start with you and ask what's CompTIA doing next? What can we expect to come out from you guys next?
Thank you for asking. So I think one of the sneak previews I can give you right away, because it's in my wheelhouse, is that we're going to be publishing national guideline standards for occupations that we want people to run with and use to create their own registered apprenticeship program. So if you're in the middle of thinking about how to get involved in an apprenticeship program, that's coming with U.S. Department of Labor. And one of those is cybersecurity technician. So that's super core to this group, and we want to share that news loud and broadly. And of course, our certifications are on a constant refresh cycle, and you can find the latest versions. As soon as I blink, it seems like we have a new version, because every 3 years, every cert renews. So there's always something new, fresh coming there. So I would refer you to CompTIA.org for that kind of news, because I love what Thomas said, to think of this as a infinite game. I'm going to use that moving forward. So we have a lot of infinite cycles on refreshing our certifications, and you'll be seeing all the related resources there. And now that we have official curriculum, you may not know that there's a lot of things we can find there. And then in IT Fundamentals Plus, on the very beginning side, where we talked about learning how to learn to take certification exams, we've had a pilot going this year with 10 schools across the country for remotely facilitated curriculum in that area, because we wanted to see, and to what Karen said, there's a real bottleneck in instructors. So we're trying to create a kit that can be facilitated by an instructor, but not necessarily someone who has full expertise in the subject matter. They have classroom management, they have interest in being a teacher in this area, but we want to help develop more teachers and get that curriculum to more students. So you'll be seeing more pushed out in that, and it's called Cyber Prep. And it's the very first baby step toward getting into cyber. So if anyone's interested in that, we have more information coming for sure soon on that as well.
That sounds exciting. And I certainly, I apologize.
That's what happens when we're all virtual. There's just a busy office there. And I'm sorry, none of those cute animals behind you can answer the phone for you.
So I understand, right, the frustrations about the credentials constantly updating, right? We need to stay on top of the latest threats, and my curriculum team is no stranger to that, right? No sooner that we finish content that's referencing a certain credential, that it gets updated and we have to redesign most of it, the least of which was the change from Security Plus 501 to 601. So just another cost of doing business in the area of shuffling credentials. So Thomas, what's new? What's next steps for Palo Alto Networks? What kind of things can we look forward to in terms of cybersecurity credentials or educational opportunities?
Yeah, so for educational opportunities, the Academy is rolling out a whole set of entry-level courses designed for high school delivery. So starting out with Cybersecurity Foundation, which is just fundamental cybersecurity. We also have a network security fundamentals course, a cloud security fundamentals course, and a security operations fundamentals course. So all of these lead to preparation for the PCCET that I mentioned earlier, and they're available to schools who partner with us at no cost. A lot of this, when I talk about CloudSec and SecOps, it aligns with our company technologies like Strata, which is our firewall product, Prisma, which is cloud security, and then Cortex, which is security operations. But we're really diving into a lot of machine learning now, artificial intelligence. When you hear things like SOAR, which is security orchestration and response, as well as adversarial playbooks and SecOps, this PCCET certification that I'm talking about, this is the cybersecurity landscape as it is today. This is not the future, this is now. So it's not just about network security anymore, right? There's so much more to it. And you've seen that during COVID with the remote learning, remote working. The enterprise network is now in your home, and how do we secure it? Because you're connecting. So it's really key to understand that cybersecurity is more than just networks. That's a fundamental component of cyber, but it's not the only component. So if you want to break into the industry, you have to learn about each piece of cyber at the entry level in order to gain experience in the different channels. One other thing I want to say though is for employers and for you high school students out there, teachers out there that are prepping your students for the workforce. Employers first and foremost are searching for candidates who can read, comprehend, right, write, communicate effectively. These so-called soft skills, right? Having a technical skill isn't always the primary driver. Even though you're competing for a cybersecurity job, it definitely helps if you have some hands-on experience and you have exposure and you have a general knowledge of the broad cybersecurity landscape. But keep focus on those soft skills because those are key. Especially during your interview, your resume writing, when you're competing for a job, employers want to know if you can communicate effectively and if you can learn, right? Because they're going to teach you their technology and how they secure their enterprise networks or otherwise. As long as you can learn and you can pivot and adapt, you're going to be successful.
Yeah, really, really great points. Important for every, up and coming student of cyber who wants to opportunity in the workforce. So thank you for that. Karen, thoughts on next steps in North Carolina, things that you guys are working on in terms of getting students ready for workforce or cybersecurity in general?
Just alluding to what Tom was saying about employability skills. The state of North Carolina, now every course that we're developing, in the process of developing, we have come up with 6 essential employability skills, and we have to map those skills with the standards. So that way we're ensuring that we are teaching employability skills. So it won't be one-sided like Tom was alluding to. So that's something exciting that we're doing in North Carolina. We're also on my end of the state, we're trying to implement more student help desk, especially now districts their technology departments are being overrun with those kind of tier 1 issues. So using our computer engineering pathway, we're trying to get those students and getting those certifications to help with those help desks, which ends up leading to apprenticeship opportunities and that work-based learning component that can take them straight into the workforce once they graduate. Another thing that with the new reauthorization of Perkins funds, we're now able to reach 5th graders and provide career awareness for 5th grade. So each district is responsible for coming up with a plan as to how are they going to get career awareness to 5th graders. So I've been working with the state career readiness specialist on some supplemental activities concerning cyber and some of the other fields, so that way we can get that up and going in 5th grade on purpose. And then the last thing that we're doing in North Carolina is trying to increase our transparency in the courses that we offer, in the standards and our pathways. So we have a new forward public-facing website, a new course management system, and I'm going to put.
You just went on mute. Sorry, Amy. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry. In the chat, I'm going to put, we have a new course management system that's a public-facing website for all of the courses in every single pathway that we have in North Carolina. So those are some exciting things coming out of North Carolina.
That's fabulous. A couple things I wanted to just follow up on real quick. When you mentioned tier 1 issues and help desk concerns, is that stuff that you use in current high school students to begin to troubleshoot? So are they getting, you know, job skills while they're still in high school? That's awesome. Yeah.
Yes, some schools have been doing these help desks for a number of years, but now COVID has brought it to the forefront. So now we have about 3 districts in our local 12 county region that are looking into those student help desks. And, you know, a lot of our kids have Chromebooks, the districts issued. So, you know, changing of keys, you know, just small, low level things that the students can get. So they get grades, you know, they get classwork, you know, they get the grades and they also get that work-based learning. So
yeah, that's great.
They can sit for those exams.
I'm going to ask you a favor in the closing couple minutes. If you can find a link to that Perkins 5th grade connection, is that a North Carolina only thing, or is that something that it's a Perkins?
Federal. It's Perkins.
Wow.
It's under the new reauthorization.
Yeah, I was curious if maybe you had a link you might be able to share on that. I'm sure we can all Google it, but if you had something, it might be great to kind of put the link here in the chat. I know we're hitting the top of the hour. I see some folks dropping off, got to get back to teach class or what other calendar events you have going on. So I really want to take a moment and thank all of our panelists for their contributions to today's discussion. I hope it was informative for everyone and provides insight into how and when students should be sitting for IBCs as they prepare for the cybersecurity workforce. As you move forward, please be sure to bookmark cyber.org as we prepare for the next presentation in our Cyber Ed webinar series. The next event is going to come up in late February, and it's going to feature a panel from the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. The event is titled Tools for K-12 Leaders, Prevent, Respond, and Recover from Ransomware Attacks. As the threat of cyber attacks looms ever larger over K-12 schools and districts, it's never been more important to be proactive in protecting your district and student data from malicious actors. Join CISA as they share tools, resources, and no-cost services to help K-12 decision makers prevent and recover from ransomware and other attacks. This will be sometime later in February, so please do keep an eye on our calendar. If you have questions, feel free to loiter and we'll let you unmute and ask. In the meantime, I'm going to say thank you. Thanks to our panelists, Amy Kardel from CompTIA, Karen McPherson from North Carolina Schools, and Thomas Trevethan from Palo Alto Networks. I'm going to paste contact info one more time in the chat in case you're looking for an email. Otherwise, go forth and do great things and feel free to stick around and unmute. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks, everybody.